Hello. As a disclaimer, I'm going to be talking generally about the Twilight books and not the movies. And this is Grayson. Say hello. Hello. Says Twilight. So in the grand scheme of things, I think this book is pretty boring. It's like fine, I guess. 80% of the book is Bella wakes up, she goes to school, she stares at Edward all day, she goes home, she cooks dinner, and then she goes to bed and has a weird symbolic dream about Edward where she knows exactly what's happening but doesn't know what's happening. And that repeats with or without Edward until the book ends. And other evil vampires just show up out of nowhere, and they immediately want to kill Bella. Like, they're like, there she is, kill her. And then Bella gets tricked and then attacked, and then she needs to be saved, and then they go to a dance, and then the book ends. The last line of the book I do like, where it's Edward presses his lips to Bella's neck, and then the book, it's over after that. A lot of people reading the book thought that he bit her and turned her into a vampire, so when they were reading the second book, they were like, ooh, she's a vampire. But no, that's too creative. And also way out of character for Edward, because at that point he was like, you're never gonna be a vampire ever. So just Edward and Bella, they see each other and then immediately become obsessed, and then they fall in love. I mean, they don't really like fall in love with each other. It doesn't feel like they're in love with each other. They're just obsessed with each other, and they're like in love after 2 weeks, and really they just stare at each other and they sexualize each other. So what I got from this book was that the only reason that Edward likes Bella is because he can't read her mind, which is fascinating for some reason, and her blood smells really good. So basically, he just wants to kill her, I guess. And then Bella, she just thinks he's like pretty, like he's just handsome. She doesn't really have a reason for liking him. It's not like you need to have a reason for liking somebody, but Bella never talks about how like Edward makes her happy or makes her feel safe, or like that he makes her laugh or anything. It's literally just, ooh, he's so handsome, and like that's it. She likes nothing about him. I don't understand why she likes him. I mean, really, I think she's just a teenager with teenager hormones. So she sees this really handsome guy and she just has lust for him. But the book never like makes that interesting. So it's not even like sexual fantasies, which isn't entirely interesting to me, but she just looks at him and she wants to like hold his hand, I guess. But like that's it. There's nothing beyond that. There's nothing for me to get invested in because she just wants to hold his hand, which is to me like such a low stakes. Like I would hold hands with my friends, my siblings and stuff. So like I don't understand why it's so difficult. Like in my relationship, I put my hand out and we hold hands. Like it's so simple. I don't know why it has to be such a big thing. I don't know why this book has to be this long when there's nothing beyond that, when it's supposed to be a romance book. I was also doing a little bit of research to try and help me understand the book a little bit better, and I can't confirm this rumor, but I found online this Instagram post, I think, where it has a quote from Stephanie Meyer, who wrote Twilight, where she says that she made Bella and Edward autistic, and that's why they act the way that they do. To me, I just think it's just bad writing, and you're just pretending. That's her excuse. So she's implying that Edward and Bella are hyperfixating on each other. As an autistic person, that's not impossible to hyperfixate on a person, but to this extent and explicitly in a romantic sense, for me, doesn't seem plausible, especially for how the book plays out. And aside from that, they don't really have any other autistic traits, so I don't feel comfortable assuming that Edward and Bella are autistic, because that's just like, to me, as a writer and an autistic person, that just feels like a scapegoat to have like bad writing, because your characters have no traits, they're just obsessed with their love interest. Hyperfixating isn't just, oh, I really like this thing, I need to have it, you know? It's a lot deeper than that. I found this website called ADDA. They define hyperfixation as an intense and lengthy focus on something, which usually leads to the person literally forgetting about everything and anything else. And the article I found says that the person typically becomes oblivious to everything else. So when I'm reading the book, Bella literally does that. She is basically hyperfixating on Edward when she isn't thinking about Edward, which is almost never. The book is extremely boring. I think the book is boring even when she is thinking about Edward, because when they're in the same room together, she's just commenting on his body and his face, and there's no substance. Like, it's not like they're getting to know each other. She immediately guesses that he's a vampire, and then they just are dating. They are just dating. My issue with Bella is that she doesn't change. She doesn't do anything, and it's really boring to read. And Stephanie Meyer described Bella as a quiet girl who reads books, which I found in an interview. And it's very different than other young adult protagonists like Stephanie describes. But it's also like kind of boring, because for me, I'm like a quiet person, but clearly I have a lot of ideas, and I do have things that I want to say, and I have a lot of things that I do. And Bella doesn't have any of that, and the book never has anything interesting to say, and because she narrates it, she never has anything interesting to say. And the fact that her mind can't be read means nothing, because she thinks about nothing. So unfortunately, Bella has very few character traits. Like, the things that I could come up with as I was writing my script were, she's clumsy, she likes to cook, and she likes to read. Aside from telling the audience that she's clumsy and just narrating that she's cooking something and narrating that she's reading like Pride and Prejudice, she never talks about her clumsiness. She glosses over cooking because it's something that she has to do to care for her father. And they have like a really stunted relationship. And I feel like the movie did expand on that a lot. Like, Charlie very clearly cares for Bella in the movie. And in the book, it's just not obvious. Which I feel like when you have the ability to describe literally everything, I think that you should. It makes the book more immersive in most cases. She reads Pride and Prejudice at one point. She's basically like, oh, Edward is my Mr. Darcy. And it's like, that's it? That's it? You're not even gonna talk about like why you like the book. You're just gonna say, oh, I read it so many times. Like, that's it? I think in my mind, when someone's describing something that they like to do or whatever, they want to talk about why they like it. And this just doesn't happen in Twilight. I guess like the only other thing is that she's like a caretaker type because her mom is very flighty. But then that doesn't like affect anything about her in the rest of the book. It just gives you like a base, plain thing to know about Bella, to make you feel like you know her, so that when she talks about the things that she likes, which is mainly just Edward, you feel invested. But I don't feel invested because I know nothing about Bella. She's just like a flat nothing burger. And honestly, Edward isn't that much better. Which brings us to the second book I wanted to talk about, Midnight Sun. I have collected another cat. He's very cute. He might leave. Yeah, he's gonna leave. Or you're gonna sit there. So Midnight Sun came out in 2020. I know that there were a few chapters leaked a couple of years ago. I don't want to talk about that. I'm just going to talk about the book. So far, I have two good things to say about it. One, understanding more about why Edward hated Bella when he met her actually makes a lot of sense. And I like being able to see what he was thinking during that. And just in case you don't know, he was basically thinking, how can I kill everyone in this room so they won't stop me from getting Bella? Very funny, hilarious. Peak comedy. The second thing, I really like seeing how Edward reads Charlie's mind. He describes it as very muffled. I think the first time he described it was like hearing someone talking from the next room. He doesn't hear Charlie's thoughts as like an inner monologue, like there's no full sentences, there's no descriptions or pictures of what Charlie is seeing or thinking about. It's more like impressions. Oftentimes he describes Charlie's thoughts very accurately. And then he says, at least that's my best guess, which is so frustrating because it's like, you're telling me all this and then you're saying, oh, I might have it wrong. Like, then why would you say that? And I think Stephanie just wants us to know what Charlie's thinking, but she doesn't want Edward to be like omnipotent, even though he can read people's minds. Mostly, I'm pretty frustrated when I'm reading this book. I'm listening to it as an audiobook, and like from the very first page, Edward is extremely angsty, and he meets Bella, and then he basically vaults wildly between I want to know what Bella is thinking and I'm gonna kill her and she should leave. What? You're supposed to be like in love with this girl, and a couple of times he says he loves her, and I'm like, bro, you are still thinking about how you're going to kill her and you love her? Something that I think is really interesting is that Edward is so obsessed with being around Bella and seeing her through people's minds. And then he always says stuff like, people's minds don't do her justice. I need to see her with my own eyes. That's the creepiest thing I've ever heard. He literally objectifies Bella all the time. Like, he's always thinking about touching her lips and her hair, and like he describes her curves and her collarbones. And there's one point she's wearing this gross oversized green ugly sweater, but I'm so grateful that she's wearing it because otherwise I would be so obsessed with her curves. And I'm like, bro, I want to cover my entire body. Leave me alone. It's so gross and weird. I need to hold my emotional support teddy bear right now because red flags. As a side note, my version of the audiobook is narrated by Jake Abel, who I know from the 2010 Percy Jackson movie and Supernatural Season 5. And I think Jake Abel's a fine actor, and I think he captures Edward just fine. It's just that Edward has, like, nothing to him except angst. A few of his acting choices annoy me, but it only affects my enjoyment because at times, when he's narrating, he gets really quiet, like he's whispering, and unfortunately for me, I can't listen to the book when I'm driving. I have to have headphones on, otherwise I can't hear what's being said. Driving is the one time where I can usually listen to an audiobook for an extended period of time, and my headphones always make my ears hurt. Sorry. Jeez, scaredy cat. Ha, because you're a cat. As for the content of the book, it's fine. It's fine. It's whatever. I think reading this story from Edward's perspective is slightly more interesting because he does constantly go into like his backstory and the lore about the Cullens and the Volturi, and he's always talking about how the other Cullens were like created, turned into vampires, and that's interesting. And I like the expansion on the lore, and I like the expansion on the character relationships, but it does get very annoying because he always goes into these lore dumps in the middle of conversations with Bella. The book switches back from like this interesting stuff that kind of feels like an unsolicited story from Grandpa to Edward just obsessing over Bella. I think he's very creepy. I don't like how he describes everything, and the only thing I like is that we get more glimpses into other people's minds. But still, it's like the Twilight book, the original book, has enough information about other characters aside from Bella and Edward that you can understand what's happening and like why they feel the way they feel about things, and you don't necessarily need that jump into their minds. I think that I liked Twilight a little bit more. I feel like Bella narrates in a better way. I also like that she doesn't know anything about the vampire world, so when she talks to someone about it or when she's learning about it, we as the audience are also learning about it for the first time. But the sad thing about that is we don't actually get to learn more from Edward. It's just the same as with Bella. You know, it's the same conversations, except instead of from her side, it's from his side. That's it. It's the same thing. It's so dumb. It feels weird that the book is like that. It feels extremely dependent on the fact that you read Twilight first. I think if I were to try and experience these books again, I would want to listen to from my audiobooks or read a chapter from Bella's perspective first. So reading like the prologue and chapter 1 of Twilight, and then switching to Midnight Sun and reading chapter 1, the prologue in chapter 1, and then switching back to Twilight. And I think if you do that, reading Bella's perspective and then switching to Edward's perspective and then back and forth, I feel like that would be a more immersive experience. I feel like that would be more interesting, but like, these books are so long. I don't know if I could do it. I think the most annoying thing, though, about Midnight Sun is that it came out after all of the other books, it came out after all of the movies, and it still doesn't answer any questions. Like, Breaking Dawn, the book, had so many questions that were kind of left open-ended. Like, for some reason in Breaking Dawn, they bring up that Jacob Black and the other werewolves aren't actually werewolves. They're shapeshifters. It doesn't mean anything. They're just shapeshifters who happen to only turn into wolves. And then also in Breaking Dawn, they bring up the vampire-human hybrids, which chronologically Edward shouldn't know about in Midnight Sun because Midnight Sun only takes place during the first Twilight book. But like, you had the opportunity, because all of the books were finished and the movies, you had the opportunity to have the whole Twilight series from Edward's perspective in Midnight Sun. But Stephanie Meyer only wrote Twilight from Edward's perspective. She just went back to the beginning of the story and redid it. I'm a little frustrated with the book because I thought that with Edward's mind reading ability, we would at least learn more about the supernatural in the world. For example, in Twilight, the inability to read Bella's mind is never explained. At least while she's human. Like, no one can read her mind while she's human. No powers affect her, no psychic attacks. None of it affects her. You know, we find out in New Moon that Jane's pain power doesn't work. Aro can't read her mind. Edward can't read her mind. And we find out in the movies, especially in Breaking Dawn, when more vampires are around, Zephrina, I think that's her name, has the ability to make you see whatever she wants you to, and it works on Edward but it doesn't work on Bella. The girl with the lightning hands touches Bella, and that doesn't affect her at all for some reason. But Alice can still see Bella's future. Jasper has like an emotion manipulation power, I guess. That's not really explained ever either. And he can affect her emotions. So I don't understand how the thing works with Bella. And it's also not explained ever. But I thought because, like, Midnight Sun was going to be from Edward's perspective, and, you know, he's with Carlisle, and Carlisle is one of the oldest vampires in the story. I thought that maybe there would be, like, an explanation of how vampires exist, you know, like, when did the first one start? Is there magic in the universe? Like, are there witches? Are there other supernatural monsters that exist? How do the powers work? How do you know you're gonna get a power? Are older vampires stronger? Are older vampires able to develop a power? Can you expand your power into more things? Can you gain more powers? No questions are answered. So like I can't, I just I'm so frustrated with the book because it's just Twilight again. But even less interesting because Edward is so annoying. Like, he's an annoying protagonist. I don't like hearing him describe anything. He's very frustrating to listen to. I wanted more of the supernatural side. And if not, more about Bella, because she is a human with a supernatural ability. Her mind cannot be read. And Edward kind of, like, he really quickly glosses over. He's like, Charlie's mind is muffled. And I wish his parents were alive so I could see what their minds were like. But they're dead. So, like, that goes nowhere. And I'm thinking, you could have done something with that. But nope. Alright, so I think those are all my thoughts on these two books. I think Twilight, the book, is kind of, like, outdated and old. But I do like reading it. It's a very PG book. So I wouldn't mind giving it to, like, teenagers today or my own children when they're older. I don't have children. When I do have children, when they're older, I would give them this book. It's extremely PG. It's a little, like, it is a very intense depiction of a toxic relationship. But as you're reading it, you're not realizing that it's toxic. You have to, like, really think about it because the book is not challenging at all. It's very surface level. There's no deeper meaning. There's no digging involved. It's what's on the page is what the book is, which is fine. I personally want to think a little bit more about the stuff that I read. I want to be challenged a little bit. And like I said before, I think I would read the books again, but I do want to read, like, the Twilight chapter, then the Midnight Sun chapter, and alternate like that. The books just don't have enough interesting content to justify reading it, especially given its length. Twilight is almost 120,000 words, and that's like 500 pages. And then Midnight Sun is 240,000 words, and that's almost 700 pages. I am shocked. The books are so long, and the content doesn't justify the length. They are too boring to read, especially together. That's 360,000 words I would have to read again if I wanted to experience these the way that I was talking about before. And I think I would read Twilight again, but not Midnight Sun. I think Twilight's a little bit more interesting. I like how Bella describes things, and I don't like Edward's thoughts at all. My sister, who was actually a young adult when the first Twilight book came out, she was able to read it. She read the whole series. She was a super fan. She watched all of the movies. And then Midnight Sun came out in 2020, and I was talking to her the other week, and she was like, yeah, I'm not going to read it. because it's been too long and I don't want to read it. It's the ship has sailed. It's over. And I agree with that. It's like the original fan base for the book are just not interested anymore. They've aged out of young adult books. I think that the newer fans reading these books, like me, might enjoy it. Like, I read all 4 of the Twilight books. I didn't love them, but I enjoyed reading them. And Midnight Sun still is like, this is gross, I don't like it. It's uncomfortable. I don't know if I can finish it. I don't like it. I really don't like it. Yeah, okay, so that's everything. Hopefully this video stays short. I do have another one planned. The script is already written, and it should be coming out soon. Anyway, so that's all the thoughts on the books. I'm gonna close it and put Twilight down for a while. I need to refresh my brain. So I'll catch you next time. You know, stay out of forests and away from sparkly, glittery men. Okay? Cool? Alright? Go home. Bye! I made myself cringe. No! I made myself cringe! I'm really weird. I'm sorry. Hey, don't eat that. Don't eat the paper. Don't eat that. Ah, damn.